The first sign was not an explosion. It was not a sound. It was a shadow. On a clear morning, when people were going to work, school, and markets as usual, the sunlight suddenly dimmed. At first, everyone thought it was just a cloud passing by. But when they looked up, they saw something that made their hearts stop. Huge black shapes were hanging in the sky. They were not airplanes. They were not helicopters. They were not anything humans had ever built. These objects were enormous, larger than football stadiums, and perfectly still. They did not make noise. They did not release smoke. They just floated there as if gravity did not matter to them. In New York City, people filled the streets staring upward. Some recorded videos with shaking hands. Some started praying. In Tokyo, office workers ran to the windows of tall buildings, pressing their faces against the glass. In Cairo, drivers stopped their cars in the middle of the road, causing traffic jams within minutes. In São Paulo, children pointed at the sky, thinking it was some kind of movie promotion, but this was not a movie. Within minutes, the internet exploded with videos and live streams. Social media was flooded with one question: what is that? Governments quickly tried to calm people. News channels said it might be an unknown military project or a natural phenomenon. Scientists tried to study the objects through telescopes and satellites, but something strange happened. Satellites began to fail. Communication systems started breaking down. Phone calls dropped suddenly. Television signals went black. GPS systems stopped working. Planes in the sky lost contact with control towers. Pilots struggled to keep control as their instruments flickered and shut down. Fear began to spread like fire. Military forces around the world went on high alert. Fighter jets were sent into the sky to approach the mysterious ships. Soldiers prepared for possible attacks. Leaders of powerful nations rushed into emergency meetings deep inside secure bunkers. Still, the objects in the sky did nothing. They just watched. For hours, the world waited. Then it happened. Without warning, one of the black ships above a coastal military base moved slightly. A bright white light formed at its center. At first it looked beautiful, like a star growing brighter and brighter. Then the beam shot down. There was no explosion sound that people could hear. There was no fireball rising into the air. The military base simply disappeared. 1 second it was there. The next second it was gone. In its place was a smooth, smoking crater. Thousands of people were erased in less than a breath. The news spread instantly. Videos showed the bright beam. Reporters spoke with shaking voices. The world understood one terrible truth. This was an attack. Panic took over. People rushed to supermarkets to buy food and water. Stores were emptied within hours. Gas stations ran dry. Banks were overwhelmed as people tried to withdraw money. Some families packed their belongings and tried to leave big cities, believing smaller towns might be safer. Hospitals prepared for mass casualties. Police struggled to control crowds. In some places, riots began. Fear can make people do desperate things. World leaders tried to send messages to the ships. They broadcast signals in different languages. They sent mathematical patterns into space, hoping to show peaceful intentions. Scientists suggested that maybe this was just a warning. Maybe the beings controlling those ships wanted to talk, but the ships did not respond. Instead, every screen on Earth suddenly turned on at the same time. Phones that had lost signal lit up again. Televisions that were black flickered to life. Digital billboards in cities changed their advertisements to a strange symbol no one had seen before. The same message appeared everywhere. The text was not in English, Chinese, Arabic, or any known language. It was a series of symbols. For a few seconds, people could not understand it. Then, as if some invisible translator was working inside every device, the symbols changed. The message was now clear, written in every major language on Earth. This world is now under evaluation by the Galactic Council. Resistance will result in extermination. The words were simple, but they were terrifying. Evaluation, extermination. People read the message again and again, hoping they misunderstood. But the meaning was clear. Earth was being judged. Humanity was being tested like an experiment, and if they failed, they would be wiped out. Religious leaders began speaking to their followers, calling for prayer and unity. Scientists worked without rest, trying to understand the technology behind the ships. Military commanders prepared plans, even though they knew their weapons might not work. In many homes, families gathered together. Parents held their children tightly. Some tried to act calm, telling their kids everything would be okay. Others could not hide the fear in their eyes. Across the oceans, naval fleets moved into defensive positions. Submarines disappeared beneath the waves. Fighter jets waited on runways, ready to launch at a moment's notice. Nuclear weapons were discussed in secret rooms, though everyone knew using them could destroy humanity itself. Still, the alien ships remained silent. They did not attack again immediately. That silence was almost worse than another strike. It felt like a predator studying its prey before deciding how to kill it. Scientists began to notice patterns. The ships were positioned above major cities and military centers. It was a clear show of power. They wanted humanity to understand how helpless it was. And yet, something strange happened inside human hearts. Yes, there was fear. Yes, there was panic. But there was also anger. Humans had fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They had survived plagues, natural disasters, and world wars. They had rebuilt cities from ashes before. Now, for the first time, the enemy was not another country. It was not another group of humans. It was something from the stars. Late that night, in cities around the world, people stood on rooftops staring at the silent ships. The sky no longer felt beautiful. It felt dangerous. A young girl in Sao Paulo asked her mother, "Are they going to destroy us?" Her mother did not know the answer. No one did. In New York, firefighters who had seen tragedy before watched the dark shape above them and felt smaller than ever. In Tokyo, engineers stayed in their offices, trying to keep power grids alive. In Cairo, families gathered on balconies, whispering prayers under the shadow of something not made by humans. The world had changed in a single day. Before the ships arrived, people worried about jobs, exams, politics, and daily problems. Now none of those things mattered. Humanity faced a question it had never faced before. Would it survive? As midnight passed in different time zones, leaders from powerful nations connected through secure lines. They argued, blamed each other, and demanded answers. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. Earth was no longer in control. High above the planet, inside one of the massive black ships, unknown beings observed everything. They watched human reactions. They recorded military movements. They analyzed communication signals. To them, this might have been just another mission. To humanity, it was the beginning of the most important fight in its history. And as the first day of invasion ended, the ships did not leave. They stayed there waiting. After the first attack, the world did not sleep. The giant alien ships were still hanging in the sky, silent and dark. No one knew when they would strike again. Every second felt heavy. Every sound made people jump. Governments could not wait anymore. They had to respond. Within hours, fighter jets were launched from different countries. Pilots were given simple orders: approach the ships carefully, collect data, and if necessary, fire. The pilots were brave, but inside their helmets their hearts were racing. As they flew higher and closer, the alien ships looked even bigger. The surface of the ships was smooth and black, with no windows, no engines, no visible weapons. When the jets locked their radar systems onto the ships, something strange happened. The radar screens began to glitch. Signals disappeared. Communication with ground control became weak. Some pilots reported that their controls felt heavy, like an invisible force was pushing against them. Then one country decided to test its weapons. A missile was launched. People around the world watched live broadcasts, holding their breath. The missile flew fast and straight toward the alien ship. For a moment it seemed like it would hit, but just before impact, the missile stopped in mid-air. It did not explode. It did not fall. It simply froze, like time itself had paused for that one object. A second later, the missile turned to dust and disappeared. The message was clear. Human weapons meant nothing still. More attempts were made. Different countries launched more missiles. Fighter jets fired rounds of ammunition. None of it worked. Some missiles melted before reaching the ships. Others changed direction and fell harmlessly into the ocean. A few jets lost power completely and had to make emergency landings. The alien ships did not fire back. They did not need to. Their defense alone was enough to show how far ahead they were. Inside military bunkers, leaders looked at the screens in shock. Some generals suggested stronger attacks. Others warned that using nuclear weapons might destroy Earth more than the aliens. No one wanted to be the leader who made the wrong decision. While governments struggled, something unexpected started happening among ordinary people. Instead of fighting each other, countries began talking to each other. For years, many nations had been enemies. They competed for power, money, and influence. They argued about borders and trade. But now those arguments felt small. Secure communication lines were opened between rival nations. Leaders who had not spoken in years were suddenly sharing information. Military secrets were revealed. Classified research was exchanged. Scientists from different countries joined online emergency meetings. They shared data about the alien ships. They compared energy readings, gravity distortions, and signal patterns. For the first time in history, human knowledge was not divided by politics. In underground facilities built for worst-case scenarios, secret plans were activated. Deep under mountains, inside reinforced bunkers, teams of engineers and researchers gathered. These were places built during old wars, prepared for nuclear disasters. Few people even knew they existed. Now they became humanity's hidden brain. Artificial intelligence systems that had been limited by safety rules were given more freedom. Supercomputers were turned on at full power. Old experimental projects that had been considered too dangerous were reopened. On one underground lab, scientists studied alien signal patterns. In another, physicists tried to understand how the ships were floating without visible engines. In yet another, engineers worked on new types of communication technology that might bypass alien interference. There was no guarantee of success, but humans refused to sit still on the streets. Life was still chaotic. Many cities experienced shortages of food and fuel. Some people tried to flee to rural areas, believing the aliens might focus only on big cities. Highways were packed with cars, airports were closed, trains were overloaded, but even in the middle of fear there were acts of courage. Doctors worked double shifts in hospitals. Volunteers distributed food to elderly neighbors. Technicians risked their lives climbing damaged power lines to restore electricity. The alien ships remained in the sky, watching. Days passed without another direct attack. That silence created a new kind of fear. It felt like the aliens were studying human behavior, testing reactions, measuring resistance. News reporters spoke carefully, trying not to create more panic. Some experts suggested that the aliens might be observing how humanity responds to pressure. Others feared that a bigger attack was being prepared. In secret meetings, world leaders made a historic decision. They would create a global coalition. It was not just a military alliance. It was something bigger. It included scientists, engineers, cyber experts, medical researchers, and even private technology companies. Information that had been hidden for decades was now shared openly among trusted partners. Satellite data, advanced weapon designs, experimental propulsion research, everything was placed on the table. Old rivalries did not disappear overnight, but survival became more important than pride. In one powerful nation, a general said something that changed the tone of the discussion. "We are not separate countries anymore. We are one species under threat." Those words spread across secure networks and inspired cooperation. At the same time, hackers and cybersecurity experts noticed something interesting. The alien ships were not completely silent. They were communicating with each other using signals beyond normal human technology. These signals were complex and extremely fast, but they existed. And if something sends signals, it has a network. That idea gave humanity a small spark of hope. Teams of the best programmers in the world began working together. They analyzed every bit of strange energy fluctuation and unusual radio pattern. They tried to decode fragments of alien communication that had felt impossible, but humans are known for trying the impossible. In homes across the world, people watched updates every hour. Children stopped going to school. Parents tried to keep them calm by creating small routines inside houses. Some families played board games to distract themselves. Others sat quietly, listening to the news. Religious gatherings moved online, with leaders encouraging unity and strength. Social media, despite earlier chaos, slowly became a place where people shared messages of hope. The world had not collapsed. It had bent under pressure, but it had not broken. The aliens might have expected complete chaos. They might have expected humans to turn on each other. Instead, they saw something else. They saw cooperation. They saw a rapid adaptation. They saw a species that, when cornered, becomes more creative. Inside alien command centers high above Earth, unknown beings continued to observe. They recorded military failures. They analyzed human communication spikes. They noticed the sudden increase in encrypted global data exchange. Perhaps they expected surrender, but surrender did not come. Instead, deep below the surface of the planet, in hidden rooms filled with screens and wires, human minds worked without rest. Sleep became rare. Coffee cups piled up. Eyes turned red from staring at monitors. One scientist whispered to her colleague, "They are stronger than us, but they are not perfect." That belief, small as it was, became fuel. Humanity understood something important. They could not win with strength alone. They could not match alien firepower, but they could think. They could adapt. They could look for weaknesses. And so, while the skies remained dark with massive alien ships, something powerful was growing on Earth. Not weapons, not fear, but determination. The invasion had not ended humanity, it had awakened it. The alien ships had studied Earth for a long time. That much became clear as days passed. They knew where the major cities were. They knew where military bases were located. They knew how to disable satellites and communication systems within seconds. Their first attack had been precise, not random. It was like they had already read a full report about humanity before arriving. Many scientists believed the aliens had been watching Earth for years, maybe even centuries. They must have collected data about human wars, political conflicts, environmental problems, and economic systems. From far away, humanity probably looked divided and unstable. Countries fought over land and resources. Leaders argued. People disagreed about almost everything. From the alien point of view, Earth may have seemed weak, but they made one big mistake. They did not understand human emotions. They did not understand what happens when humans feel cornered. At first there was fear. The streets were filled with panic. Markets were empty. News channels showed worried faces all day and night. But slowly, another feeling began to grow. Anger. People were angry that their planet was being judged. Angry that their cities were being threatened. Angry that someone from the stars had decided humanity was just a test subject. This anger did not turn into chaos. It turned into unity. In secure rooms across the world, leaders who once refused to sit at the same table were now speaking calmly. There was no time for ego. There was no space for old arguments. Every discussion had one goal: survival. A global coalition was officially formed. It was not announced loudly to the public at first, but inside government systems it was very real. Scientists, engineers, military strategists, and technology experts were connected through protected communication networks. Information flowed faster than ever before. Classified research that had been hidden for decades was unlocked. Advanced energy experiments, prototype propulsion systems, artificial intelligence programs that were considered too risky. Everything was now allowed. That one of the biggest changes happened in the field of artificial intelligence before the invasion. Many governments limited how powerful AI systems could become. There were fears about machines becoming too intelligent or uncontrollable. But now, with alien ships floating in the sky, those fears felt small. Supercomputers were given new permissions. AI systems were allowed to analyze alien data without restrictions. They studied energy readings from the ships. They compared alien communication signals. They searched for patterns that human minds might miss. At the same time, hackers from around the world joined the effort. Some were government cyber experts. Others were independent programmers who had once worked in secret corners of the internet. Now they were invited into official teams. For the first time, there were no enemies in cyberspace. Everyone had the same enemy. While military weapons had failed in the sky, scientists believed there had to be another way. The alien ships were advanced, but they were still machines. Machines depend on systems. Systems depend on communication, and communication can be studied in an underground research facility beneath the mountains near Geneva. A small team made an important discovery. The facility had existed for years, built for high-energy physics experiments. It was deep, secure, and filled with powerful equipment. The team noticed strange energy pulses moving between the alien ships. These pulses were too fast for normal radio waves. They were not visible to standard communication tools, but they existed. At first it looked like random noise. But one young physicist decided to look closer. She asked the AI system to slow down the data and map the pulses visually. The computer created a moving pattern on the screen. It was not random, it was organized. The ships were connected in a network. Every ship was not acting alone. They were sharing information constantly. If one ship detected something, all others knew immediately. If one ship changed position, the others adjusted. This explained why human attacks failed so quickly. The alien network reacted instantly, but this discovery also created hope. If the ships were connected, maybe the network itself could be targeted. The idea was risky. No human had ever interacted with alien technology before. Trying to interfere with it could trigger a massive retaliation, but doing nothing meant certain defeat. The team in Geneva presented their findings to the global coalition. Within hours, experts from different countries joined the discussion through secure video calls. Mathematicians studied the pulse timing. Computer scientists examined possible structures of the network. Cybersecurity experts discussed whether a foreign signal could enter the system. Many said it was impossible. The alien technology was far beyond human level. It would likely have protection systems, stronger than anything on Earth. But humans are known for one thing: persistence. The team decided not to think about destroying the ships. Instead, they focused on understanding them. They analyzed how often the pulses repeated. They studied small delays between signals. They looked for moments when the network seemed slightly slower, even if only for a fraction of a second. After days of non-stop work, a pattern appeared. The network had central nodes. Some ships acted like communication hubs. They processed more data than others. If something affected those nodes, the entire system might feel it. It was a small weakness, but it was something. Meanwhile, the public did not know all these details, but they could feel that something was changing. Governments were no longer only reacting, they were planning. News reports began to mention global cooperation. Scientists appeared on television speaking with cautious hope. People started to believe that humanity was not completely helpless in homes across the world. Families watched updates with more attention than fear. Children asked questions about space and technology. Teachers held online classes explaining basic physics and computer science, saying, "Maybe one of you will help solve this." The mood slowly shifted from panic to determination. The aliens were still watching. They could see human military movements. They could monitor energy usage spikes from underground facilities. They probably noticed the increase in encrypted global communication, perhaps. They thought humans were simply struggling, but deep under the earth, something new was forming. A plan. The idea was simple in theory, but extremely difficult in practice. If humanity could create a signal that looked like part of the alien network, it might be able to enter the system. Once inside, it could send confusing data. Not a big explosion, not a visible attack, just disruption. Confusion inside a perfect system can cause chaos. A small group of programmers began building what they called a mathematical key. It was not written in any human language. It was based on patterns observed in alien pulses. The goal was to mimic the rhythm and structure of alien communication. The work was intense. Mistakes could be deadly. If the aliens detected an artificial signal, they might respond with force. Still, the team continued. Days turned into sleepless nights. Coffee cups covered desks. Screens displayed endless lines of numbers. The AI systems tested millions of variations, searching for the closest match to alien signal patterns. Finally, a test simulation showed something surprising. When the artificial signal was inserted into a digital model of the alien network, the system hesitated. For a brief moment, the model treated the signal as real. It was only a simulation, but it proved something important. The alien network was not untouchable, could be approached, or it could be studied, that could possibly be influenced. As realization spread quietly among coalition leaders, hope returned, not as excitement, but as focus. Humanity could not overpower the aliens, but maybe it could outthink them. The Alien Council had believed they understood Earth. They had studied wars and weaknesses. They had measured weapons and resources, but they had not measured adaptability. They had not measured creativity under pressure. They had not measured what that happens when billions of minds face the same threat at the same time. That as the giant ships continued floating in the sky, they may have believed Earth was slowly preparing for surrender. Instead, Earth was preparing for something else. A countermove, not loud, not visible, but powerful. And for the first time since the invasion began, humanity felt something stronger than fear. It felt ready to fight back. For days, the plan remained a secret known only to a small group of leaders, scientists and programmers. The alien ships were still floating above major cities. Silent and powerful, people on the ground could see them every day and every night. They were a constant reminder that Earth was no longer in control, but deep underground, humanity was preparing something the aliens did not expect. The scientists had finally built a signal that looked almost identical to the pulses the alien ships were using to communicate with each other. It was not just random code. It was carefully designed using mathematics, timing, and patterns copied from the alien network itself. The goal was not to destroy the ships with weapons. The goal was to enter their system quietly. The programmers called it a ghost signal. It would act like a whisper inside the alien network. The biggest risk was detection. If the aliens realized someone was trying to enter their system, they might attack instantly. Cities could vanish in seconds, so the launch had to be perfect. The signal would be sent from multiple locations at the same time. Underground facilities in different countries prepared their strongest transmitters. Satellites that were still working were adjusted carefully. Energy levels were calculated again and again to avoid mistakes. The night before the launch, many of the scientists did not sleep. Some stared at screens in silence. Others sat quietly, thinking about their families. They all knew this could change everything, that if the plan failed, that aliens might respond with full force. If it succeeded, humanity would show that it was not helpless at the exact planned time. The global coalition gave the order. The ghost signal was launched. There was no explosion, no bright light in the sky. On the streets, people did not notice anything different. The alien ships looked the same as always, but inside the network of those massive ships, something small had changed. The ghost signal traveled at incredible speed, copying the rhythm of alien communication. It reached one of the central nodes, the ships that handled the most data. For a few seconds, nothing happened. In underground control rooms, scientists held their breath. Eyes were fixed on screens showing alien energy readings. Then, one of the ships above Asia showed a tiny fluctuation. It was small, so small that no one on the ground could see it, but the instruments detected it. The network had accepted the signal. The ghost was inside. The programmers immediately activated the second phase. The signal began sending altered data, small changes, carefully calculated. It did not shout. It did not send a direct attack. It created confusion. Inside the alien network, commands started to overlap. Position data became slightly incorrect. Timing sequences shifted by tiny fractions of a second. To humans, these changes were microscopic. To a perfectly synchronized alien fleet, they were dangerous. Within minutes, one ship moved slightly out of formation. Another adjusted its position too late. Two ships that were supposed to remain still drifted closer to each other than intended. In the sky above a major city in Asia, people noticed something strange. One of the ships flickered for a moment. It was like a shadow passing over its surface. News cameras zoomed in. In underground bunkers, excitement mixed with fear. The ghost signal was working, but now the aliens might notice. The programmers increased the intensity slightly. The altered data began spreading to more ships through the network. The central nodes processed the false information and passed it along. Then something incredible happened. One alien ship suddenly rotated sharply, as if reacting to a threat that did not exist. Another ship responded by activating a defensive system. Bright energy pulses appeared between them. To observers on Earth, it looked like the ships were turning against each other in one region. A ship fired a focused energy beam not at Earth, but at another alien vessel. The beam struck its target. The sky lit up with blinding white light. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were damaging themselves. People in cities below stared in shock. Some cheered, others could not believe what they were seeing. On screens around the world, news reporters spoke in loud, excited voices. The ships are attacking each other, one anchor said. barely able to control his emotions. In the alien command centers above Earth, chaos was spreading. Their network, once perfectly synchronized, was now unstable. False signals mixed with real commands. Defensive systems activated at the wrong time. Targeting programs misidentified. Friendly ships as threats. The ghost signal continued to move deeper into the system. One of the largest command vessels began experiencing serious problems. Its gravity control field used to keep it stable in Earth's atmosphere started fluctuating. Energy readings spiked. Scientists underground saw the numbers rising dangerously. Pull back, one officer asked. The lead programmer shook his head. Not yet. Moments later, the massive command vessel shuddered. A visible distortion appeared around it, like the air itself was bending. Then, with a silent flash, the ship collapsed inward. There was no loud explosion. Instead, the ship seemed to fold into itself, shrinking rapidly before disappearing completely. The sky where it had floated for days was suddenly empty. Across the planet, people gasped. The aliens were not invincible, but victory was not complete. Several ships quickly moved away from their original positions. The network began attempting to isolate corrupted nodes. The aliens were adapting. The ghost signals started facing resistance. Some ships cut communication temporarily, reducing the spread of false data. The programmers realized they had only a limited window. They pushed the system one final time. The signal sent a complex cascade of mathematical loops into the network data designed to overload processing systems without causing permanent destruction. The goal was not to wipe out the entire fleet. The goal was to force them to retreat. For several intense minutes, the sky above Earth looked like a battlefield. Ships shifted erratically. Energy bursts flashed between vessels. A few more ships malfunctioned, their surfaces flickering. Then slowly, something changed. The remaining alien ships stopped attacking each other. They pulled back one by one. The massive black shapes began rising higher into the atmosphere. The movement was smooth and organized, as if a new command had been issued. In underground bunkers, silence filled the rooms. Had humanity pushed too far? Had the aliens decided to launch full extermination? But instead of firing at Earth, the ships continued rising higher, until they were small dark shapes against the stars. Within an hour, most of the fleet had disappeared into space. Only a few distant lights remained visible in the night sky. On the ground, people stepped outside their homes. They looked up at a sky that suddenly felt bigger and quieter. No beams of destruction came down. No new threats appeared. The ghost signal had not destroyed the alien civilization, but it had done something even more important: that it frightened them. For the first time in their long history, the Galactic Council had faced resistance from a species they considered primitive. Humanity had not matched their strength. Humanity had not matched their technology, but humanity had done something unexpected. It had entered their system. It had turned their own network into a weapon. In control rooms around the world, exhausted scientists leaned back in their chairs. Some laughed, some cried, some simply stared at the screens in disbelief. They knew the war might not be over, but they had proven something powerful. Earth was not prey, and somewhere far above, as the remaining alien ships regrouped, the Council began to understand a dangerous truth. Humans were not just surviving, they were learning. When the alien ships disappeared into deep space, the world did not celebrate immediately. People stood outside their homes, looking up at the sky, unsure of what would happen next. The darkness above felt strange without the massive black shapes. For days, the ships had been a constant shadow over Earth. Now the sky looked normal again. But nothing felt normal. In underground control rooms, scientists kept watching their screens. Military radars scanned space again and again. Satellites were adjusted to search for any sign of the fleet returning. No one trusted the silence. Then, after several long hours, every digital screen on Earth turned on once more. Phones lit up, televisions activated, billboards changed. The same symbol that had appeared during the invasion showed up again. People froze, afraid of what the next message might say. The symbols shifted into human languages. Evaluation complete. Humanity deemed unpredictable. Further engagement postponed indefinitely. The words were calm, almost cold, but they meant one thing. The aliens were leaving, not because they were destroyed, not because they lost completely, but because they were uncertain in cities around the world. People read the message in silence. Some did not understand the word unpredictable. Others understood it very clearly. It meant the Galactic Council had expected humans to behave in a certain way. They expected surrender. They expected panic and collapse. They expected a divided species. Instead, they found resistance. Deep in space, inside a massive command structure far beyond Earth's atmosphere, the Galactic Council held a meeting unlike any before. For centuries, they had traveled from world to world, evaluating developing civilizations. Most species they encountered were primitive, easy to control, or too divided to fight back. Earth had seemed no different in their reports. Humans fought each other. Humans damaged their own planet. Humans argued about everything. From a distance, Earth looked unstable. The Council believed they could intimidate humanity into submission within days, but the event's over. Earth changed that belief. For the first time in their long history, a developing species had entered their network, not with equal technology, not with superior weapons, but with creativity. Humans had studied alien systems quickly. They had shared knowledge across borders. They had used mathematics and logic in unexpected ways. Council's most advanced ships had malfunctioned because of human code. One of their command vessels had collapsed in Earth's atmosphere. Had never happened before. Inside the Council chamber, tension filled the air. Some members argued that Earth should be destroyed immediately to prevent future danger. Others warned that returning too soon would risk greater damage. If humans could adapt this quickly in just days, what would they achieve in years? The word unpredictable appeared again and again in their analysis reports. Unpredictable. Species were dangerous, not because they were strong, but because they could grow stronger back on Earth. World leaders gathered for another historic meeting. This time, the tone was different. The invasion had forced cooperation. Now they faced a choice: return to old rivalries or continue working together. Images of alien ships attacking each other were shown on large screens. Data from the ghost signal was reviewed carefully. Scientists explained how close the planet had come to destruction. One leader said quietly, "They left because they are unsure of us. If we fall apart now, they will come back stronger." That sentence changed the mood of the room for the first time in human history. Earth understood that it was not alone in the universe, and the universe was not friendly. Rebuilding began. Immediately, the military base that had been erased was honored with memorial ceremonies. Families of those lost were given support. Cities repaired damaged infrastructure. Power grids were strengthened. Satellite systems were redesigned to resist alien interference, but something deeper changed. Two nations continued sharing research. The global coalition did not dissolve. Instead, it became permanent. A new international organization was formed and offered war against each other. But for defense of the planet, space programs received massive funding. Telescopes were upgraded. New satellites were launched to monitor deep space constantly. Artificial intelligence systems were improved, not for control, but for protection. Schools added new subjects to their lessons. Children learned about cybersecurity, space science, and planetary defense. Young students who had watched alien ships in the sky now dreamed of becoming scientists and engineers. The invasion had created fear, but it had also created purpose in small towns and big cities alike. People talked about what happened. Parents told their children how humanity worked together. News channels replayed the moment when the alien ship collapsed. It became a symbol of hope. Still, the memory of the beam that erased a city remained painful. Humanity did not forget the loss. Memorial monuments were built around the world, not only for those who died in the first attack, but as a reminder of what unity achieved afterward. Years passed. The sky remained quiet. No new alien ships appeared, but deep space surveillance never stopped. Every strange signal was investigated. Every unusual object was tracked. The Galactic Council observed from a great distance. They continued studying Earth, but now with caution. Their reports no longer described humans as primitive and divided. Instead, new words appeared: adaptive, creative, resilient, dangerous. Some Council members suggested placing Earth on a restricted list, a world not to be approached without extreme preparation. Others quietly recommended avoiding the planet entirely. Earth had gained something powerful. Respect, not through strength, not through advanced technology alone, but through determination. On a calm evening many years after the invasion, a young engineer stood on a rooftop in one of the rebuilt cities. She had been a child when the ships first appeared. She remembered hiding with her family, afraid to look at the sky. Now she looked up without fear. The stars seemed different to her, not distant and mysterious, but full of possibilities. She knew that somewhere out there, civilizations were watching, and she smiled. Because if they were watching, they would see something new. They would see a planet united by experience. They would see a species that learns fast. They would see humanity. The Galactic Council had once believed Earth was under evaluation, but in the end, something unexpected happened. Humanity had evaluated them too, and the result was clear: if they ever returned, they would not face a frightened world, they would face a prepared one. The invasion did not end human civilization, it transformed it, and far beyond the stars. In chambers filled with ancient knowledge, the Council recorded a new directive in their archives: never underestimate a species that fights hardest when it has nothing left to lose.